Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing our finale review for Agatha All Along, and I am including episode 7 too because I'm very aware at this point I am 2 weeks behind doing a review for episode 7 and 1 week as of the filming of today with the finale episodes. But I'm getting around to it. But for now, let's get into episode 7, 8, and 9 of Agatha All Along. But I will say here, I get some bragging rights. Some of the theories that I've been talking about in my other 6 episode reviews have come true. For example, I felt on episode 6 when Lilia gave Billy Maximoff or William Kaplan that reading when she said the tower reversed, I felt that that was not only a message to William Kaplan that his life was about to be reversed and turn into Billy, but also I said that I think that means a double reading that Lilia too was also telling her future self this is the way she's going to die, because as we see in episode 7 she does indeed flip the tower and reverse the tower, which ends up sadly leading to her death. But I did guess that in episode 6, and also in episode 6 another one of my theories that I guessed and sussed out before they revealed it in the show is that when Billy is looking in William Kaplan's room and there's all those posters around him, I was like, this seems very familiar, all these posters all seem to be adding up to The Witch's Road, and I was right. But overall I have to say that Jack Schaefer has done a beautiful job with all these little mysteries, and I've thoroughly enjoyed reviewing this show. So on that topic, let's get into the review of episodes 7, 8, and 9. So episode 7 is Lilia's episode, and this one was great. Not only do I think so, but Deadline reported that this was one of the highest rated episodes of the whole season, pulling 4.2 million views in one 24-hour period. And isn't that amazing? Oh, I'm so glad for Patti LuPone. She did really good in this role. And I can see why. This episode was beautiful. And I think it was so cool to see her visions all lined up in this episode, how they all connected, all those random lines she said throughout the series that we've been picking up on as reviewers, and all of the weird random tarot cards that she just shot out there and said randomly as well. They all get pulled together into a beautiful reveal in this episode. And I think it was particularly beautiful that this trial was the end of Lilia's physical journey, but the start of her spiritual or psychic journey. Because as we see at the beginning of the episode, young Lilia looked quite confused, sat opposite her coven leader, but at the end she's smiling. She now no longer has any surprises left for her, having completed the physical centuries old witch life that she's had. But living life out of order must be incredibly difficult for Lilia. We got a taste of it this episode, and this episode really threw us about, and I thought that was great. And it must be so difficult living your life out of order like this. But what are the visions all lined up? So the Get Off Me from episode 2, when they're about to sing the Witch's Road song that Lilia screams, "Get off me." Well, that connects to episode 7, Agatha as the Wicked Witch, when she's on top of Lilia, who is in the Glinda outfit, having just saved her from her falling sword. From episode 4, when Lilia said, "We really all hated each other at the beginning, but now," and then it trails off. That connects to episode 3, where she said, "I love you guys," when they were all like puffy-faced from drinking the poison. When Lilia screamed and said, "I hated this the first time," from episode 2, when she screamed before she wrote down the names of the coven members. And that connects to episode 5. But then, of course, the one we all guessed from episode 4, Alice, Alice Don't, that connected to Try to Save Agatha in episode 3. And of course, here, again, from episode 4, when she goes, "Well, what is it? Am I kooky or am I wispy?" That's when Jen said in episode 7, "You're being extra wispy, kooky." And the Alice, Alice Don't, Try to Save Agatha, that was so good, that thing. We all did kind of guess it, and we kind of all guessed that there was a warning. I guess that it was kind of a warning maybe coming through Lilia. I guessed it was potentially Alice's mum who was trying to warn her from the great beyond to be like, don't save Agatha. But actually, within this episode, when we realise Lilia is living life out of timeline order, right? I think it's actually quite sad because Alice is already dead in our current timeline in episode 7. Now, when you rewatch it, when Lilia goes, "Alice, Alice don't," as in try to save Agatha, this is like almost Lilia, when she's back through time and stuff, the present day Lilia who knows Alice is dead, suddenly you can see on her face when you rewatch them the actual sadness in that moment. I mean, we all saw it play out, but we didn't think much of it in episode 4 because we were like, Alice, don't what? Which is exactly what Alice said. She was like, don't what? But now that we know that Lilia knows Alice dies trying to save Agatha, it's really sad because Patti LuPone's acting skills are so good. You can actually see within her eyes, she's like, oh my God, I've transported back in time. I'm going to save Alice right now. But then she gets thrown back again. So she's like, don't try to. And then she's off into the past again, but this time with Agatha. So she didn't even get to give her a warning, even though she was living life out of sync. And isn't that sad? She tried to protect a protection witch, but it didn't go to plan. And the other big lineup of the dots was, of course, the tarot card readings. So what did those mean? So here, this is where Lilia actually ends her trial, and she puts down the cards and she gets the first one, and she says the Traveller, which equals herself, Lilia, and that is the Queen of Cups. And she says that as an inner voice to be trusted. Isn't that sweet? And then she says the path ahead, which is the High Priestess. And of course, she said this when she first saw Jen in episode 2, when she walked in and she greeted Jen. She was like, the High Priestess. And at the time I was thinking, is Jen a High Priestess? But no, this was a tarot card reading from Lilia to Jen in that moment, that she was the path ahead. And she says this is immense spiritual power, unable or unwilling to use it. But of course, Jen is unable to use her power because she's been bound. She also says what's missing. Then she says 3 of Pentacles, my coven, as in that's what's been missing for Lilia, because she of course doesn't like having covens, because when she is in one, she sees them all die, and this is too upsetting for Lilia, or she tries to save them and it still doesn't work out, so she gave up on having covens to begin with. But here she says 3 of Pentacles, what's missing, my coven, so that's obviously aimed at the coven, the rest of the cast. She then goes on to say what are the obstacles, and that's the 3 of Swords, which was behind Agatha in the scene where she was trying to save Billy, or when Billy was sleeping or something like that, and behind Agatha. At the time I didn't even notice this. It was the 3 homemade broomsticks, and that was lined up like the daggers and the heart behind Agatha. And this is for heartbreak, sorrow and grief. So it's quite fitting that it's behind Agatha, especially given what we learn in episodes 8 and 9. She also goes on to say, what is the path behind? So that was the Knight of Wands, because it's the path behind, which is Alice, full of fire, fights bravely. Then she goes on to say the Tower Reversed, which is the Windfall, which of course is Billy Maximoff or Billy Kaplan. And then finally she said death, that's the destination. Oh boy, wasn't that a good lineup that she read out. And when she said that in that moment in the episode, it was like, wow. Like, and of course, then we found out this is actually about none other than Rio Vidal, who is Lady Death. And isn't that brilliant how all of that connected up, and how they revealed that the destination for Lilia, sadly, is death, at the same time that we learn that Lady Death is Rio. And I want to take a moment again here to say that I did kind of also guess that, again from episode 5 this was, when I said that, well, I sort of theorized to myself that Rio had more to do with death than, you know, in that Ouija board thing, because I pointed out when everyone was freaking out when the things were getting thrown around, well, Rio was the one smiling and being happy. And of course, I think I said back then something about like maybe Lady Death or something to do along those lines was in the room with them. But of course, Death was in the room with them. It was Lady Death. It was Rio. So I was kind of correct saying Lady Death in one of my earlier reviews was in the room with them. I just didn't realize it was Rio Vidal. Other things I think in the episode 7 that stood out to me were the costumes. Obviously, the Wicked Witch was Agatha. The Evil Queen, or the Old Hag, was Jen. Glinda was Lilia, and Maleficent was Wiccan, or Billy. And here in this episode, Billy asks Agatha, is Wanda Maximoff really dead? And this is before they enter the trial. Agatha replies with yes, no, maybe, but this is clearly because Jack Schaefer can't say, or doesn't have full power to say, that one of the Avengers or one of the Marvel properties, being so popular as well with Wanda, she has no power to actually say that Wanda is completely confirmed dead. So she just goes with yes, no, maybe, like, yes, in my story for Jack Schaefer, Wanda's dead. At least not in the Agatha All Along TV show anyway. This was a show about Agatha, and to some extent now Wiccan, so there was no need or room for Wanda really in this. As much as it would have been great, I mean, I would have loved to see Wanda just at the end or something, but because of the way the story ended, the Witch's Road not being real, it kind of being a figment of Billy's imagination, it makes sense Wanda's not actually going to be on the road because it doesn't exist. But it was funny whilst they were in the trial watching Agatha and Wiccan at odds with each other doing a tarot card reading, and they were making hopeless guesses, and it was really funny because neither of them could do tarot. So I thought that was funny as the swords like flung down. Especially when Agatha at one point goes, "Oh, you have a real gift," which was rather funny. Agatha almost kills Billy here too, but he ducks away out of the chair from the sword that nearly fell onto him. However, there's a real sadness to this episode actually when Lilia and us realise that Lilia is living on borrowed time. And this is kind of shown through Lady Death showing up when they were down in the underground part of the Witch's Road. And Lilia and Jen also down when they're exploring and navigating the underground bit of the Witch's Road. Lilia and Jen bond here too. And we're shown actually Lilia and Jen's bonding over this episode. For example, Jen says, tell me you mentioned something about gaps, which is referring to when Lilia is off someplace else and she gets all spacey, kooky, and wispy. But of course, this is because she's living life out of sync and not in a linear line. She's non-linear living. So in her gaps, that's because she's off here, there, and everywhere. And later in the episode, but back in time for them, there's two options for them to take. One leads out of the Witch's Road and one continues on. And Lilia says, I'm going to go ahead because Agatha and Billy need my help. And she says, I hope you'll join me. And Jan says, why? And Lilia says, because you are my sister in the craft. And that's another lovely moment between them that bonds these two together. Also, there's a funny line here because Lilia grabs teen and calls him teenager. And Jen goes like, damn, like you're using his full name for like teenager rather than teen. So I thought that was quite funny. And also Lilia kind of asks Jen if she's furious or aren't you furious? And Jen goes, I mean always, but collectively we've moved on. So I thought that was quite funny too. Also, Agatha calls Lilia Dory here at one point, which I thought was rather funny as well. And also here, Billy asks and confirms with Lilia if she was going to put the sigil on him, and she says yes, because she said she knew he needed more time. But also here, I will say I didn't like this, and I've said this throughout my series review as well. There's a crap line from Billy where he says, I am the queerant, as in the queer rent, as in that's the person who sits down to have their reading done. They're the queerant. And Billy makes that stupid, like, I'm a queer runt. Not really funny. I actually found it quite irritating, and it's not needed because Billy Maximoff in the comics is one of the very few in the Marvel Comics openly gay male characters. Gay male being the thing that he is. He's not queer person in the comic. No. Billy Wiccan is not queer. He is a gay male in a gay male relationship, one of very few gay male relationships that isn't queer. And on that note, I kind of think that this has been a consistent frustration, at least as a gay male watching the show, seeing how Jack Schaefer is depicting lesbian relationships and lesbian characters as quite strong and powerful and, you know, three-dimensional characters. And whilst Billy has been developed nicely in the show, I will say that, from Jack Schaefer, he has come across as quite the butt of the joke a lot, and it is kind of annoying to watch a gay character be a butt of a joke when the female relationships are taken seriously and the female lesbian characters are taken seriously, and then we get the one gay character Marvel's done properly, and he's calling himself like a queerant and, you know, using TikTok gay language in other episodes, which I have discussed and touched on briefly as well. I think overall, I could have done with a lot less gay crap coming out of Joe Locke's mouth and, you know, the Billy Maximoff character's mouth. If they had just made him, like, cool and strong and funny, that would have been good. Because Joe Locke can be quite funny, as we saw in this series quite a few times, but I think the queer jokes and the silly little gay iconic and she's living, it's giving, it's like, shut up. Like, Joe Locke is acting... because he's been the script, because Jack Schaefer's script is acting like a drag queen, and Billy Maximoff is not a drag queen, he is a gay male. So I'll just stop now talking about that kind of thing. That is my opinion on that side of things, but I will continue with the review of this episode, because I do, in the whole, love Agatha all along as a TV show. So we'll keep it positive, but I did need to say that. But we'll keep it positive from here. And then we get to the part where Lilia saves them all doing her reading, and she gets them all to go into the Iron Maiden. It is also here that Billy and Jen learn that Rio is Lady Death. And I thought this was really beautiful. A last gift to the coven, her coven, is to Agatha advice. She says, when she calls you a coward, hit the deck. She gives back Billy the little spell book that he's been having throughout the series. And lastly, she says to Jen, you're the path ahead, Jennifer. And then she shuts the Iron Maiden, at which point Jen screams no and is sad. At this point, though, we get an amazing scene with Lilia. Because as she goes to shut the Iron Maiden, she says, I loved being a witch. And it's such a beautiful moment here that really wraps together the sadness that this episode does have. Lilia is out of time and she knows it, and she closes to protect the coven, and then she takes herself out along with the Salem 7. And on that note, she does wait in the room for the Salem 7 to shapeshift back into their human self. She states that when you successfully complete a trial, like I just did, it's not a good idea to overstay your welcome on the Witch's Road. And why is this? Well, she says because something terrible happens. An upheaval, disaster, destruction, And she finishes her talk with the Salem 7 by saying, like the tower, upright. And then she just flips over the tower, the reversed tarot card, as I said before. And then the room turns upside down. And all the Salem 7 have a beautiful moment here. The cinematography with this moment was amazing. Just the way it was shot, the angles that it was shot at, the fact it was slow motion in the edit and filmed so wonderfully and so beautifully, and it gave Patti LuPone her moment of the show, and what a moment she got, because it was beautiful, touching, and heartbreaking. And as the Salem 7 plummet to the deaths, poor Lilia's grabbing onto that table. She loved being a witch. She doesn't want to give up being a witch, but she knows that she's gonna fall, and that's when you have that beautiful moment where she's, you know, from the episode, which goes, I'm falling, I was falling, I will fall. And the mentor's like, yep, so what are you going to do? And what she chose to do was save her coven and help them off the witch's road. And isn't that beautiful? It was just great. And then she falls in slow motion, but we don't see her hit the swords or anything. They do cut and leave that to your imagination. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful. But I will point out here, the Salem 7 really didn't seem to do anything within this show, apart from chase Agatha down to the Witch's Road that shouldn't have existed in the first place. If they weren't in this TV show, people would still have gone down the Witch's Road, because they would have still sung the Witch's Road song, and Billy would have still been there to create the Witch's Road that they all go down. So whether they were being chased by the Salem 7, whether Agatha was being chased by the Salem 7, because she says, without getting too much into the last episode, she says to Rio when she strikes a deal to stop chasing her. But it's not like the Salem 7 were Rio's horsemen chasing her. They were just after her because she killed their mums, which was revealed in WandaVision. So, yeah, if you really take them out, they don't really have much to play, and they don't really feature heavily. And then they died, but they died as pointlessly as they began. So I don't think that was. I mean, this show has been really good with everything having a purpose and a reason, and I've struggled to find what the Salem 7 purpose was. And as I say, then episode 7 ends with a young Lilia going into one of her first lessons in Sicily, in Italy, and she says, as I say, sorry, she smiles at her coven leader, and her coven leader says, "Let us begin." And that ends that episode. Okay, let's get into episode 8 then. So at this point, if you, what am I on? In the edit, I'll be on 34 minutes, but this won't be 34 minutes of the video when you're watching it. But if you feel like you need to take a break at this point, please do pause me and then come back to me if you want, and we'll continue our episode review. Go away if you want, and then come find me again, and we'll crack on with episode 8. For those of you who want to just plow on with me, though, feel free to, and let's get into the episode 8 review. I'm part of our 2-episode finale, which was brilliant. Well, I found it brilliant anyway. But let's get into it. So I will say, what a finale. This has got to be one of the best shows Marvel or Disney Marvel have done together in a long time. Right up there with WandaVision and Loki, I think. I think it was released at the right time too for the witchy, spooky season. And I think ending on Halloween for both America and the UK was great. It wasn't that great to just have a Halloween tree. I watched it in the morning of Halloween, around like 10 to 11. But on a side note, before we get into why I loved it so much, I will say Jack Schaefer has done almost 2 for 2 now, WandaVision and Agatha, and I feel like moving forward she should be the only people to handle Agatha or Wanda, because she has success. You can't deny it, she has success when she handles these characters. I think moving forward though, if we just add maybe a gay male writer into the writer's room to help with Wiccan, to make him less of a joke and more of a, you know, fully formed male character who's gay, that would also be great, and I think we'd really have something beautiful for everyone then. Okay, let's get into the breakdown then. Again, why do I love it? So this opens with a very sad moment as Lady Death comes to get Alice, who wasn't ready to go, wasn't ready to pass on to the other world. I think this was so sad and lasting, because anyone who's died in this show is dead. They're not coming back. As reported by Variety, Jack Schaefer has said, death is immutable, it is permanent. With this TV show, we wanted to pay respect to that, so this is more of an earnest and grave conversation about death than maybe you would find in another superhero project. So that means Alice, Sharon, and Lilia Calderon are all actually dead and not coming back. But not Wanda. She has no right to claim Wanda's dead. And Disney was like, get your hand off Wanda. She ain't going dead. She's not dead yet. Elizabeth Olsen's mine. And then Jack Schaefer's like, no, she's dead. Look, I made her die in my little TV montage opening episode. And they're like, that's really cute. But no, The episode then goes on to the next trial, the Green Witch trial. The only problem is they don't have no Green Witch anymore because obviously the Green Witch Rio Vidal ain't Rio Vidal, she's Lady Death, and she's not helping them anymore. But before this, Rio or Death have a conversation with Agatha. The line, the bodies are really piling up, is now revealed and shown within the context of this series, and it's in reference to Alice, Lilia, Sharon, and the Salem Seven. But interestingly here, Lady Death says, just like you promised. So did Agatha make a back deal with Lady Death? Or was this to do more with running away herself from death? Like she'll keep providing bodies so that death doesn't come for her. Is this why she's had so much longevity? Because I thought she was more of a succubus, Agatha now, that she took the other witch's power and that sustained her, like she took their remaining years and added it to herself, which is how she sustained herself. But I guess not. I guess she was distracting Lady Death with all of the dead bodies she kept providing. She kept distracting Rio or Lady Death, so Lady Death didn't come for her. Here as well, Rio or Death says that Billy isn't allowed to exist. He's disrupting the sacred balance. She says the son of the Scarlet Witch stole a second life, and she says she can't let him do the same for his twin, which is Tommy. And she says she has to take him, being Billy. But Agatha says, but you can't. You can't take him because he'll just resurrect himself like a phoenix almost. So Lady Death needs Billy to sacrifice himself willingly so he can't reincarnate again. So at this point, this when Rio or Lady Death strikes a deal with Agatha and gets Agatha to agree that she'll kind of maneuver Billy into sacrificing himself. And Agatha makes a deal and says, if I get Billy to agree to die and move on with you and not come back as somebody else or bring his twin back, will you stop chasing me? Will you let me go? Will you let me have a very, very, very long life? And Rio goes, okay then, and a deal is struck. Also here within the scene, Lady Death says, Lady Death compares Billy with Nicholas Scratch and says, Agatha's had special treatment, and Agatha says, you call what you did special treatment? And here we're touching on what happened between these two, which of course they don't explain in this present moment because they explain it in episode 9 for the finale, but I'll just say it here anyway because like 8 and 9 I'm going to smush together. So Agatha is referring to Lady Death taking away her son, Nicholas Scratch. So that's right, Agatha did not sacrifice Nicholas Scratch to get the Darkhold or anything like that. That was all nasty rumours spread by jealous witches who ended up dead. So you may be asking yourself, if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't seen it, I don't know why, but if you already have seen it, we all know the answer to why she got special treatment, which of course is, and also why she hates Rio, is, one, special treatment, Nicholas Scratch was going to die as a stillborn, but Agatha asked for more time, calling Lady Death my love. Wasn't that a beautiful moment too? There's so much beautiful moments in these last 3 episodes. And number 2, why they hate each other. When Nicholas Scratch was around, I think 6 to 8 years old it was, Lady Death came for Nicholas Scratch because they didn't sacrifice a witch, and Nicholas says, we'll kill more witches tomorrow, but because there was no bodies left to distract Lady Death, I think this is the going theory, that is why Lady Death came for Nicholas Scratch on that particular day and took him away from Agatha. But another really sad moment was like, Rio was like, or Lady Death was like, go on, and then Nicholas Scratch like turned around and kissed Agatha on the cheek and then went off with Death and died. And that was so sad as well, and it's like, it shows the care Lady Death must really have for Agatha, even though it's kind of like guilt. She's like, I'm really sorry that I'm taking your son, but you didn't provide me any bodies and I have to come and collect somebody. Maybe she has a rule with whoever she's in league with or is underneath. She's like, I have a rule, I have to kill 1 person a day, and you didn't provide me any witches, so now I'm gonna have to take Nicholas Scratch. So in a way, it was really Rio or Lady Death that killed Nicholas Scratch, not Agatha. After all those rumours, after all this time watching Agatha all along, we finally find out Agatha had nothing really to do with Nicholas Scratch's death. Not that you can excuse everything she's done, because she was a pretty bad person. She killed witches before Nicholas was born, and then after Nicholas was born, she continued to kill witches, so she definitely is a witch killer. Anyway, back to the episode. This is number 8 now. Billy reassures Jen, and they move on to find Agatha. Then the 3 say screw the road, and they put on their shoes because when they were wandering around the witch's road they bumped into the starting position. They say screw the road, they put on their shoes, and they end up waking up one by one inside of a morgue. But this is the last trial. And here we learn a few things. 1, the lights above them are growing lights for plants, as in because this is the Green Witch's trial. And I think in order to escape the trial they just needed to grow something. And number 2, it was Agatha that actually bound Jen. Agatha was the one that took Jen's powers. I think she did it for money or something like that. But it was like I think she got money from a doctor, the one that bound Jen. But it wasn't the doctor who bound it. It was Agatha, the bound Jen for 100 years, and she left Jen powerless for 100 years. I guessed Voodoo King, but I was wrong on that one. But that would have been also pretty cool to like introduce a Voodoo King to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the bound Jen. But no, it was just Agatha all along. Here, Jen quickly pulls a lump of Agatha's hair because she starts the unbinding ritual, which is what Billy points out when he goes, "Oh, it's unbinding ritual," like we know. So she pulls Agatha's hair out, wraps it around both of them, and she says, "You hold nothing over me, you hold nothing." And she repeats this until she gets her power back, or her magic back. And after she gets her magic back, which looks beautiful by the way, she transports out of there. Also here, Agatha and Billy sit down and agree to find Tommy. Well, agree to find his soul running around wherever he is. And Agatha says that what Billy wants to get away from the Witch's Road is to find Tommy. That's why he's on the Witch's Road. And to do this, they need to find Tommy a body. Here, they agree to find Tommy a body, and they both close their eyes. And Agatha kind of does a guided meditation at Billy, trying to like cast your mind back to when you lost him. And this is where we hear both Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen's Vision and Wanda. We just hear them though, we don't get to see them. And they don't even do a flashback to WandaVision, which they could have done, but they didn't. They just made it all voices as the camera kind of circled Agatha and Billy. And here Billy does actually find Tommy, spiritually at least, and then he kind of searches for people who are about to die, which again robs Lady Death of another body. And they find a boy drowning in a pool because the prank's going badly. But this boy happens to be an orphan with no home and no family. And Billy asks Agatha, "Am I killing this boy so my brother can live?" At this point, Billy zips away from the Witch's Road and leaves a crack behind, like in the world he's created. And Agatha has a moment of silence where she's just with herself. Nobody's around it. That's why I say I think we get a glimpse at the real Agatha, because she can only be herself, as all of us can be only our true self when we're left alone. And Agatha says, "No, Billy, sometimes boys die." And Agatha is teary-eyed here, and the music is sad. And Jack Schaefer has done it again! I feel like Jack Schaefer is so good at beautifully exploring what grief can do to somebody. And it's powerful storytelling. For example, Wanda's grief created the Westview disaster. Wiccan's grief, caused by Alice's death, unlocked his powers on the road and revealed himself properly. And now we get Agatha's grief. It is revealed, obviously, within these 2 episodes, Nicholas Scratch is dead. Rio was the one that killed Nicholas Scratch, technically, because she's Lady Death. This show, as Jack Schaefer managed to do WandaVision, captures how grief can turn people and corrupt you if you don't work with your grief, if you just ignore it or push it away, how it can manifest bad and how it manifested nicely until it was over for Wanda in Westview, and how grief has manifested so badly for Agatha. She was a witch killer before she killed her coven, but I feel like as soon as Nikki died, she needed to kill witches to keep him alive. And I think the show does great to explore the anger Agatha feels after Nicholas Scratch is killed. Here is where we're also showing whose hair, or whose hair that it belongs to. The lock of hair in the brooch, which of course was Nicholas Scratch's hair. It's a lock of his hair in Agatha's brooch. And that was one of the guesses I think we all had anyway, but it's nice to have it confirmed. But within this lock of Nikki's hair is a little bud, and that's enough for Agatha to pass the trial. And she does this by using her tear in real Disney style. She puts the little bud on her eyes and her tears of the water, and she puts that in the soil and grows a beautiful little flower. And she's passed this trial having grown something successfully. Here, Agatha herself completes the fake Witch's Road, and the Witch's Road, or Billy Maximoff, finally lets her go from another Maximoff reality, where she was trapped in Wanda's reality. 3 years after the fact, she goes straight into another Maximoff reality in the form of Wiccan. And isn't that just funny? Jack Schaefer's like, we know what Agatha's going to do, spend about 4 years in total in Maximoff realities. It'd be nice for Agatha, I guess, to actually, well, if she survived anyway, it would be nice for her to just go get a cup of coffee and be without a Maximoff, messing with her head. But no, she does die here, sadly. But we are getting towards that. So, when she's still alive, she's passed the witch's trial and Billy must have let her go. And as she surfaces from her own basement, like the garden kind of connected basement, and she comes up from beneath them, and what she's greeted with here is Lady Death sat on top of the roof, cackling like the witch that she is. And what does Lady Death say? Well, she says, "Congratulations, my love, for passing the trial." And here Agatha still has no power when she goes to get power, because she's like, down the road now, so I should have my power. But she realizes she has no power. And this is where she screams a line from the trailer, I want my prize, which is in reference to her getting her powers back. But as she finds out, but should already know, there is no prize at the end of the road. I mean, she's the one who made up the song with Nikki, so she should know that it's all a hoax and there is no prize at the end. But maybe the fact that Wiccan suddenly conjured up a witch's road, she was like, maybe it is real. Maybe we were singing about something real, but where is my prize? But here, Lady Death responds to Agatha's I want my prize by saying, so do I, meaning a body. She's owed one, either Wiccan's or Agatha's. But here, though, without Billy, before he comes down as Wiccan, Death says that she'll claim Agatha. And she says, and Death goes, by 1,000 cuts, like death by 1,000 cuts. And then she smashes the windows inwards at Agatha and cuts her all over the place. But here I thought that Death wasn't allowed to kill people. This just had to collect their bodies, because that's what they established in episode 1, I think, because Agatha says, you're not allowed to, it's against the rules, as in now we all know why it's against the rules, because she's Death and she can't take a soul, she just has to wait for them to die. So it's interesting that she tried to kill Agatha, and she really tried to kill Agatha too. But saying that, maybe Lady Death now can kill Agatha because they struck a deal, so now she can claim Agatha's soul by taking it herself. Here too, Lilia's final message comes in handy for Agatha, as it momentarily saves Agatha's life, as Lady Death launches a sink at Agatha after calling her a coward, and then Agatha goes, when she calls you a coward, hit the deck, so she drops and avoids the sink that nearly, would have crushed her. Also here, Agatha draws from the coven that she may have not wanted, but definitely needed, and she draws a protection circle around her, aka what Alice was doing in the 4th episode, and she tries to heal the cuts with water and moonlight, which is what Jen managed to do for Billy, also in episode 4. And of course, Lilia saved her already by saying, when she calls you a coward, hit the deck. But during this lover spat, it seems Lady Death is actually sad. She keeps asking, why don't you want me? And, you love me. But is this her wanting a relationship with Agatha or just wanting her soul? I wonder. But as Agatha gets wrapped around by vines and she's about to die, and just as everything seems all over for Agatha and Lady Death's going to collect the soul that she's owed, Billy interrupts, fully dressed as Wiccan, arriving, making his Marvel debut as Wiccan. Comic book accurately dressed to boot. And he pushes Lady Death back with his mind. And to mimic Agatha from an earlier episode, now that was quite the debut. Wiccan then blasts Agatha with his magic and says, don't take it all. And he blasts Agatha. And this was such another amazing scenes that are just going to stick with you and you can't wait to watch again, as Agatha's lifted up, almost like Jesus on the crucifix style, really. And she's in all the purple lightning as around her, and she's slowly lifted up and the music swells and it's all like epic and marvelly. And Agatha transforms and gets her power back. But sadly, she comes back not in the really great outfits that she's had this season. She comes back in the frumpy dress from WandaVision and looks really crap again. But here, the two realise it is futile to try and fight off Lady Death. And there is no point. So Billy stupidly says, I'll go with you, that's my choice, take me. And here, in true Agatha style, she goes, take him, take the boy. And then she says, as promised. And that's when Wiccan is like, oh, you sold me up the river. And then she turns around and she's like, did you expect anything else from a covenless witch? Which was a little burn that Wiccan gave her earlier in the episode, and now she's used it against him. However, as Agatha starts to walk away, Billy kind of telepathically talks to her, and he says, Agatha, I know you can hear me. Is this how Nikki died? And again, this is once again powerful, and Jack Schaefer is showing grief, but also the stages of grief here. So let me explain this one. Obviously, the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I think denial, really, for Agatha was when she asked for more time for Nicholas, and him living up to the 6 to 8 years. Agatha was in denial that he would die. I think she knew he was going to die, and she was already in grief at this point. But in the denial stage, where she was like, no, maybe maybe he's going to survive. Maybe Nicholas Scratch will survive. Maybe my son will survive. Maybe if I keep killing witches, Lady Death won't come back for Nicholas, and he'll live, and I'll live, and we'll be happy. I think that was the denial stage of grief for Agatha. Of course, anger is using the song that she and Nicholas made up to kill all those witches. Obviously, The Witch's Road is the song they made up together, and I think that's Agatha's stage of anger. Bargaining, I think, is when Agatha got hold of the Darkhold. She was definitely looking for a way to bring Nicholas Scratch back. Not too dissimilar from Wanda trying to get her sons back using the Darkhold. I think for bargaining, asking for more time from Lady Death for Nicholas Scratch was a bargain that she got. For Agatha, I think the depression stage of grief was, as we saw when she hovered by the doorway of her son's room that she made up in when she was trapped in Wanda's spell. She's clearly still mourning and depressed over her son's death, and she's not let go of that fact. So I think that's really sad, and I think that was obviously her depression stage. And I guess you could argue as well when she was going around shortly after Nicholas died, killing all those witches, both anger and depression playing out there. And of course, I think finally now, getting back to the episode, acceptance. With the kiss of death, literally the kiss of death, as she kisses Lady Death herself, accepting that her time is done. Yeah, she's kind of accepting that she can't go on running and killing and constantly feeling grief. So I think that Jack Schaefer, she knowingly did this. I think that's beautiful writing to have the stages of grief played out in both WandaVision and here. And that is that though for Agatha. She's actually dead. She actually dies here. Well, a physical form does anyway. And again, it's another beautiful scene that will just stay with you from the show as a whole. Agatha's grave also is of purple flowers, which is really beautiful and gorgeous. It's truly sad. Also, what is really truly sad is that if you look amongst the purple flowers, there's some orange and yellow ones for Alice and Lilia, because they also died on the Witch's Road. There's no flowers, it would seem, for Sharon, though, which is quite sad, but it is beautiful, really, that grave. Mainly for Agatha, the purple, but the spurs of orange and yellow for Lilia and Alice. Beautiful. And here, Lady Death looks really sad as she wraps herself up as the light falls on her, and you can see her in a skull form, like her true skull shape face. She looks sad, and she's emotive. Aubrey Plaza, again, is a brilliant actress or actor, and I think she conveys this moment beautifully. And she kind of looks at Billy, and she's like, I'm going to let you go because I took one of you. I got the body I needed. And that's that. They both go their separate ways. Also, here Wickham picks up Agatha's brooch that's left behind. This episode then ends like a remake of the end of WandaVision, as Wiccan puts his hood up. In true style, as Wanda put her hood up and flew out. This time, they didn't maybe have the budget because Wiccan just puts his hood up and he drives out of Westview. And once again, leaving the people of Westview dazed and confused. They're like, what the hell's happened? Did another Maximoff just come and create a reality? And they're like, seems so. And they're like, well, at least it wasn't all of us this time. But poor Sharon was involved in both of the Maximoff realities. Yeah, she nearly died. Well, her husband did die in Wanda's reality, and this time she died in Billy's reality. So that family, what's her name, Sharon Davis, the Davis family didn't do very well in these TV shows. Jack Schaefer had it out for them. And here the episode ends as Billy goes into his room, and this is where all the dots are joined up, which I've discovered myself, as I said at the beginning of this review. In episode 6, I already figured out that Billy was the one who designed The Witch's Road. If you don't believe me, just go check out episode 6. You'll find it in there somewhere, and I was right. Woohoo! Okay, and that was the end of episode 8. I know I've touched briefly on episode 9, but I will do a quick recap of episode 9. So again, feel free to stay with me or pause and come back, take a break, do whatever. We're breezy here. So I'm breezy. What's that from? I'm breezy. Anyway, is it Friends, maybe? I don't know what it was, but it's in my brain and I know it's something from somewhere. Okay, so now let's get on to the final, or the finale episode of this wonderful show. Wonderful show. Okay, so let's get into that. If you want to stay, please do, but if you don't, bye. See you in the next episode, bye. Okay, right, let's go into this then. So the things we see in this episode are as follows. In the beginning, we see Rio, or Death, Lady Death, come for Nicholas Scratch before he's even born, as I've already mentioned. But very sad to see. Agatha already knows Lady Death is Rio, though, and knows to be sad when she shows up, as Agatha's trying to give birth. So sadly, we don't actually see an origin story to how these two met or fell in love. We just see the moment that Agatha and Rio, Agatha's given birth and Rio's turned up to go take Nicholas. Although maybe she was going to take both of them, both Agatha and Nicholas, now that I think about it. I just thought about that because Agatha says, no, my love, like, please, my love, like, give me more time. And then Rio says, I'll give you time. But maybe she meant both of them. A lot of women, especially back in the time period where Agatha's giving birth, died in childbirth. So I think maybe the time was up for both of them on that day. And maybe Agatha kept killing witches after to protect herself because she knew Lady Death was also coming for her. Would that be a cool theory? And Lady Death came for Nikki first, and then came for Agatha after. That would be brilliant if that was if that's what it meant when she was bargaining for time. She's bargaining for herself and her son. But we didn't get the origin story that I think I kind of wanted to see. I wanted to see how Lady Death and Agatha met, I think it would have been great to see, but we didn't get it here. I don't think we're going to get it again either, another chance at this, to see this, but hopefully Aubrey Plaza will be back in the MCU at some point. Of course, in the comics, has a relationship, Lady Death, not Aubrey Plaza, she has no relationship with anyone in the comics, but Lady Death has a relationship with Deadpool and Thanos, and of course there's rumors Thanos is coming back for one of the Avengers upcoming films, and of course Deadpool just joined the MCU with Deadpool and Wolverine, and of course Agatha's running around now as a ghost, so maybe there can be a love quadruple with all four of them fighting for Lady Death's attention. She's like, man, I just want a break from all of you people. She's like, all of you go give me bodies. Although I would say in the MCU, Agatha, Thanos, and Deadpool certainly do rack up a good kill count. Also, a lovely line from Agatha in this part of the episode. She says, "I spoke no spell. I said no incantation. You were made from scratch." And that's how he got his surname. Isn't that adorable? I thought it was great when I was watching it on Halloween, on last Thursday, with my little cup of tea and my little biscuits, watching it, and I was like, this is so beautiful. So sad that it all went to crap, as per usual in these shows. Oh dear. And then the episode focuses on Agatha kind of killing and tricking witches to keep her and her son alive. I would say moments of the episode between Nicholas Scratch and Agatha that stood out to me are as follows. The first kill, it's really cute because Nicholas Scratch is a little baby and Agatha's like walking with her little tiny baby and he's crying, poor little Nicholas, and he's tiny and cute, and he is obviously sad and he's hungry and he needs feeding, and Agatha kind of turns up to this first coven. She kills them, but only after they let her in. They speak Latin, and then she's allowed to come in, and it's shown through the stones as she walks over. They light up, signifying that she's allowed to pass through the spell that they must have put on. And then she kills, obviously, the coven and takes their power, which sustains both her and Nicholas's life. So whilst it is inexcusable, Agatha killing all these innocent people, she also killed them because she was protecting Nicholas Scratch. But I think one problem here is the show writes her not to care. I think what they should have done maybe is show the struggle for Agatha, maybe, that it took, or a toll it took on Agatha all those years, 6 or 7 years, killing witches to keep Nicholas alive. Maybe they could have done a better job in maybe showing an internal struggle for Agatha, because if they don't show that, which they didn't, it just makes her come off as this, mean witch bitch who just goes around killing people, and she's like, man, I don't care, you're nothing to me, I'm gonna kill you because I want my son to survive. So maybe they could have shown like an internal struggle. Maybe if they had more time, they could have, I don't know. The other thing I like between the two is the reveal that the Witch's Road was invented by Agatha and Nicholas Scratch. Yep, they're the ones who sung the song, they invented all the lyrics, and they're the ones who came up with the song. And I think it was lovely, again, this moment between Agatha and Nicholas, just walking around the woods, singing together, and existing together, and singing the song. And again, this like shows this mother and son connection that the two share, and Agatha is so in love with Nicholas Scratch, and it's really lovely to see this kind of caring side of her, which she did have for Wiccan as well, because I think Wiccan really did remind her of Nicholas Scratch, or maybe what Nicholas Scratch could have looked like, could have grown into, if he was given a chance to live without Rio or Lady Death taking him away from her. I also find it was clever that others know about the Witch's Road song, including Alice's mum, Lorna Wu, eventually knowing about the song because she made Nikki go up on like a stand on a barrel and sing in pubs the Witch's Road song. So of course through the centuries people have known about the Witch's Road song because it's become like a shanty. They get passed down from pubs to pubs to pubs to pubs until modern day times when we all know some shanties and we're like, I wonder where these came from. And they came from when they were invented, probably back when pirates were around and stuff like that. So it was cool to see that Nikki was the one after they got the song solidly lyrically put together, and then Nikki was like, I'm gonna sing this, but they used it as a way to trick witches, to lure them in and kill them. But it was cool that this is how the Witch's Road song came to be, and it is believable that modern day witches know the song and the road, the Witch's Road song, because of the sea shanty kind of vibe that the song has, which then got passed down generation to generation to generation, which of course lends itself to witches thinking the Witch's Road song is real, and then going out and seeking, well, Agatha, who then ends up killing them. It is here then that we see that Agatha turns the Witch's Road song into a trap to lure witches and kill them, sustaining her life. Also, this montage is really good. They used the Witch's Road song again, but it was loads of other witches singing throughout all the different time periods, and it wasn't that a great montage. you'll see it around me, all the different pictures, and Catherine Hahn's acting, and like physical acting with her witchy hands, and the fact she was really enjoying taking people's life forces. I think in the stage of anger through a grief stage, as I've mentioned, but I think it was a great scene, wasn't it? Like when I was rewatching the series, I think I watched that montage or that episode twice on Halloween, and then I've watched it since all the way through, and every single time I'm like, this is such a great montage. Look at all the costumes and it's so funny. I think once again quite camp with Agatha being like, oh, like, well, you people are wrong. You're useless. What have you done? Like, I can't find anything. You guys have given me nothing. Where is it? Like, where's the road? Oh no! And she's faking like, I don't see a door. Do you see a door? And then she's like, zap, and then she kills them. And I thought that was great. It was really cool to see that. And it was funny that she was going to do this to the original coven of this TV show, as we all know, because Lilia stopped Agatha because she said, no, don't blast her. That's what she wants us to do. It's a law to bait us and then kill us and steal our power. So we knew that was what was going to happen on episode 2 when they sing the Witch's Road song. But what was funny was Agatha's face when Sharon's like, what the hell's that? And it's the door, and then Agatha looks down and she's like, what the hell? What, is there an actual door there? I know there shouldn't be one. I made this bloody song. And she's like, huh? And then I think it's at this point that she then smiles at the camera and it's like, oh, that's when I knew you were Wiccan. Yes and no. Yes and no on that. I say yes because there was a sigil on Billy, wasn't there, throughout the TV show, and I think Agatha was suspicious of that. And then when she saw the door open, of course, we didn't see it until this moment, episode 9, but when she smiles, it's like, I feel like she's gone, I definitely have a Maximoff with me, because there's a sigil on him, and now a door's appeared, which shouldn't be there. But it was quite funny as Agatha's like, all right, I'll just willingly go into another Maximoff reality. Just literally that day escaped from Wanda's spell and went straight into Wiccan's spell. And then we cut back to where we left off on episode 8 when Billy screams in the room, and now we figure out why. And it's because Catherine Hahn has shown up as Agatha Harkness as a ghost. And I thought, some people are saying she doesn't look good online. I thought she looked great. She looks comic book accurate. I mean, they've kept the long hair for Agatha. And yes, I'll put some pictures around me so you can see Agatha as a ghost guiding Wanda. You can see those comic book pictures around me. Sometimes she's an old woman, sometimes she's more of a younger woman. I mean, Catherine Hahn is bordering between the both. Not that she's an old woman at all, not at all. But I like that they kept the long hair, but I like that they made it white. And she looks rather ethereal, and her dress is so glowy and floaty. Her hair's floaty. She looks floaty. She looks beautiful as a ghost, really. And it kind of is a softer look to her, because I think she's no longer Agatha Harkness villain, witch killer. She's now Agatha Harkness. She's dead, carefree. I'm just gonna stay around and annoy Wiccan and be his little haunting ghost, and eventually, I guess, attach herself to Wanda and help Wanda. But at the moment, she's helping Billy. Also, she seems quite happy to be alive as a ghost. She's like, I'm a ghost, look at me. And she's once again cheated Death. And Death has come out of this with no bodies, really. The only thing she's got was the Salem 7, Alice, Sharon, and Lydia. But she was meant to have Agatha. And once again, both Billy and Agatha tricked her. And she's probably going to come back and be like, why do you guys keep screwing me over? Man, it's hard to kill you both. And here, Ghost Agatha says, I didn't sacrifice myself for you. I took a calculated risk, which I thought was quite funny, considering Deadpool's educated wish. We now have an educated wish from Deadpool and a calculated risk from Agatha. I think those two would be rather funny in a project. Let's hope we get Lady Death, Deadpool, and Agatha show up somewhere together. Well, Ghost Agatha. And here, Billy kind of thinks that he's responsible for Sharon, Alice, and Lylia's death. But Agatha reminds him she's the one that killed Alice. Lilia chose to stay behind and sacrifice herself. But it was also funny. Normally, I was a little annoyed that Agatha keeps forgetting or not knowing the name of Sharon Davis. But it was funny here when he went, oh, I've killed Sharon Davis. She goes, who? She's like, who's that again? Like, she had just spent a day with her. And she's like, oh, yeah, the gardener lady. Which was kind of derivative for Sharon, poor Sharon Davis. She takes a hit, even after death. But here we also see, quite beautifully, the resolution of Jen's storyline. As we see Jen climbing out of the dirt, which we saw from the mid-break trailer, we see that she climbs out from the ground, and she's outside of Westview, outside the sign, and with her powers restored, she flies off. So at least Jen got to fly off. I mean, Wiccan doesn't fly nowhere, he drives off in a car, but Jen leaves Westview, flying gracefully off to the sunset. So I hope she shows up in an MCU project as well. I think her character is actually a cousin of Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider for the MCU hasn't been done yet. So it'd be lovely to see Jen come back with her cousin. Wouldn't that be great? I'd love to see Jen all witchy and, powered up with alongside Ghost Rider. Now that would be cool. Also, here it's kind of annoying that Agatha walks away from this whole series having felt no connection to anybody, really, and having no connection to other Coven members either, who died protecting her. And I don't think this is that good, especially since Alice and Lilia died protecting Agatha. For her to be at the end like, oh, I was just gonna kill them all at day one. Like, she doesn't care they're dead and was gonna kill them anyway. So she's walked away still villainous, even if she is like this campy fun ghost. It's still kind of annoying for me that she's on a narrative perspective now, walked away from the series at the end because she agrees that she's gonna go help Billy find Tommy. But apart from that, what did she actually learn even? Billy here then goes back to the basement and then tries to banish her and does the spell which we saw from the trailers with the hex and the blue lighty up Wiccan-y thing. And he tries to banish her with a personal object, which is her brooch again, which successfully worked to wake her up, so we thought it would help banish her. But she kind of laughs at this and then worries as she starts flickering in and out of banishment. She almost gets banished, and then he says, why won't you just go away, basically cross over? And she says, because I can't face him yet, being Nicholas Scratch. And as she says that, she smacks the brooch out of Wiccan's hand, picks it up and puts it on and takes it into the ghostly realm, I guess. And then she's now restored again, now fully comic accurate with the little brooch in the middle of her where it normally sits. The two then agree they would make a good team, and Billy makes a gravestone here for Sharon, Alice, and Lilia in the basement, where obviously he created the Witch's Road. So I guess he feels guilty that they've died, but he puts a gravestone there. And then the two agree they're going to go search for Tommy, and that is where the series ends. As I say, overall, I think the whole TV show was so good, and it feels so good that I thought Lord of the Rings might have been my first TV series wrap-up review, but it turns out it was Agatha, and I am perfectly okay with that, because what a great TV show this was. It also allowed us to dress up and be stupid and put our cloaks on and be all witchy and spooky and shit. But I was so good. Jack Schaefer, I feel like, once again has created and delivered a beautiful MCU Disney Plus show, but that I'm going to thoroughly enjoy rewatching next Halloween or next spooky season. I'm going to watch it now anyway again. I'm literally watching it as one of my repetitive shows that I've got on repeat because it is so good. The characters, all of them. Lilia was amazing Patti LuPone as Lilia was amazing. Jen was amazing. Sharon was great. She was very comedic. Alice had such a heartfelt storyline. Of course, Agatha and Rio have their little storyline too. Although it is cool, alright, that Rio turns out to be Lady Death and that Agatha was in a relationship with Lady Death, because of course Agatha would be. But it's weird, the resolution of their storyline, that they have a kiss of death and then she's like, well, I'm back. They're basically just cheating on you again. So Lady Death must have to come back for Agatha in the future, maybe with Wanda. I loved this series, and I loved being able to review it and break it down. And I hope anybody who's been watching, because I know I have like 30-ish views on average with this, so I hope some people who have been with me from episode 1 who have maybe come back to watch the rest, I hope you guys have enjoyed my breakdown and I do some research on these episodes as well to try and give you guys a little look into who's who in case you don't. No, I don't until I do my research on them anyway. So I think this was really fun as a great series just to review, and I'm glad it's going to be there for you guys to watch if you want, or future people who come to the channel and go through my playlists and see an Agatha and they're like, I want to check out what his thoughts about Agatha is. Well, here you go. Great. So I look forward to seeing how they develop, and I hope we see both Billy, Jen, Agatha as a ghost, Lady Death come back in future projects. Alright, that's it for this now though. I'll see you all in next video. Bye.